tell them when we're gonna go live. It's all a total surprise. And what's even more of a surprise is what we're doing at any given moment. So once again, I'm not doing crosswords. I'm doing a light-hearted trivia talk session with my esteemed colleague Bettina and Shelley. And today we're going to be talking about Doctor Who, because that's the thing that I know a reasonable amount about, or at least enough to get by in trivia. I should stress there are people out there who know like 100 times as much about Doctor Who as I do. And that's quite scary, to be honest, but they do exist. Anyway, so Bettina, before we start, what do you know about Doctor Who to start with? Do you know anything?
I do know very little. I'll start off by saying that. I do remember being in a pub and calling you after it was over to tell you that I got TARDIS wrong because I didn't even know what that was, a phone box. And you were, I think maybe you kicked something. I knew David Tennant was Doctor Who, and I know nothing. I know nothing else.
That's crazy.
I don't even know if TARDIS is a word. Like, is that what you guys called phone boxes? Like, or no. It's not a phone box, it's a police phone box.
It's a police telephone box, which is confusing because although there were police telephone boxes in Britain when Doctor Who started, they have since become entirely an anachronism, which is quite appropriate to Doctor Who, really. But yeah, it's sort of like, you know how nowadays kids see a telephone icon, a rotary phone, they're like, I have no idea what that is. That's kind of how people must feel, how kids must feel when they see the police telephone box. Even when I was a kid, we had some idea that that a police telephone box used to be a thing, but I didn't really know what it was all about.
I don't think we have them.
Anyway,
I don't think we have, and I don't remember ever thinking, you know what, I need to rush to the telephone and call the police from a special police.
Yeah. Well, you know, before the days of mobile phones.
You would go to like a place by the bathrooms, and that's where the telephone, like the McDonald's.
Yeah, even payphones are no longer a thing, are they?
That's what I meant.
But you know, you can see the use. Before the days of mobile phones, you know, you were in the street, you saw a crime. Yeah. You know what you're going to do? You need a way to get the police over to you real quick, and that was what a police telephone box, I think, was. Anyway, to answer your question, no, TARDIS is not just a British word for a police box. It is an acronym coined by the Doctor's granddaughter Susan, and it stands for the words time and relative dimension, not dimensions, dimension in space. So, yeah.
So it's a time traveling thing.
It is a spacecraft, I guess, that can travel through both.
Do you actually see it come off the ground?
Not really. So it does something. Yeah. It does something more like the Star Trek teleporters in that it dematerializes. So it makes a noise which is hard to imitate if you're a human. In comics, that noise is almost always rendered as vwarp, vwarp. Doesn't really sum it up, but it's sort of a grinding, a wheezing, groaning sound is how they often describe it in the books. So yeah.
I think in the future we could all become holograms. So you don't actually die, you used to be a hologram. And if you die, can you be a hologram so that I could answer at least one trivia quiz correctly?
So holograms are Red Dwarf, not Doctor Who. Doctor Who does not have a proud tradition of holograms.
That's too bad. I thought I was going somewhere with that.
You're mixing your metaphors.
Okay, so I do know this, another little fact. I do know that there's a female Doctor Who. There was a female Doctor Who, and that was like a big thing.
And now
because there has been, because you men don't believe in women time traveling.
Yeah, a lot of angry Gamini men who liked Doctor Who when they were 5 and now think somehow that it's way worse than it used to be. I got really angry about that, and they were like, "It's not Nurse Who." You know, the kind of person who says things like that is, you know, instantly detestable.
Yeah. So I actually watched the first episode. Actually, I didn't watch the first episode. I watched like the first 3 minutes at the beginning of the first episode of Doctor Who on YouTube to see.
That's very courageous of you.
Get an idea of what I was getting into, and I am absolutely confused. What I saw was just could be like a black and white film noir, some
Yeah.
eerie music, cut to a scene where I don't even know what I was looking at, and that was a Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's really hard to
So
tell
made
what's
out
going
of
on
the
in
corn
those
baby.
first shots. The first shots of Doctor Who are really a callback to Dixon of Dock Green, I think. There's a very popular TV show, which was a police procedural, I suppose, back in the day, called Dixon of Dock Green. He was like a bobby who would go on his beat and say, "Evening all, I'm Dixon of Dock Green." He'd probably solve some very gentle crimes like a bag snatching or a cat up a tree. And so at the beginning, when
Crime?
no one knows what Doctor Who is, they have a policeman doing his rounds, and he passes by a junkyard and he hears a mysterious otherworldly noise. And he's like, "Oh," doesn't go in though, but
That's what I saw.
that's the TARDIS humming. Yeah, okay. Here's the first question for you. What year do you think the first Doctor Who aired? Do you know? Do you know where it's from?
Well, it's a black and white short that I saw. So I wouldn't, I'm going to presume it's before 1970. 1960. When did Gilligan's Island come out? 1966. The only reason I say that is because Gilligan's Island started in black and white and then became color. 1966. That's my guess. I'm sticking to it.
That's the year Star Trek started. So do you think Doctor Who and Star Trek are exactly the same age?
Did Star Trek start in America though?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about a year before? Because Britain always does it a year before.
Yeah. Doctor Who started. Actually, I'm going to ask you another question. You might be able to get this, derive this by trivia. What day did Doctor Who first air?
What day of the week?
What calendar date?
Oh, there's like a famous date.
Yeah.
Something that would appeal.
So I'll give you a hint.
Oh, like
the first
okay, go ahead.
the first episode of Doctor Who was aired, but it had to be re-aired the next day because there was an event of such earth-shattering magnitude that no one watched it because they were all in a big state, and so they were like, "Okay, we're going to run Doctor Who again tomorrow, so that people will actually watch it." So this might help you determine what year.
Can you, you can't give me a time frame. Is it 1960s? Is it? Am I in the 1960s?
You are correct. You are correct. It's before 60.
This is not like Hiroshima or anything.
Before 65. If I told you it was 1963.
Oh, did JFK die?
Yes. So Doctor Who basically.
Oh wow! In November 3rd. I honestly don't remember the date he died.
I think Doctor Who's birthday is November the 22nd. November the 23rd, 1963. So it's like.
That's really good. That's a good piece of trivia.
Yeah, so yeah, that was
November 23rd, 1963, the day that JFK died, is when Doctor Who aired.
Yeah,
and then it had to be.
It's like roughly the same time. It's like the day after, maybe, but yeah.
Okay.
So there's a Stephen King novel called what is it, 1122 or 1123:63.
That's right.
Or whatever. And
yeah.
I always look at that and go, "Oh, Doctor Who!" It makes me go and want to watch Doctor Who. Whenever I see that in a bookstore.
Okay. Let me ask you this before the TV came out, was it a radio program?
No.
Okay, so it was just a basic premise. Somebody just was like, "Hey, this would be a good TV show. Let's try it."
Yeah. There was a character called Sidney Newman who famously had the idea, and then basically other people turned it into all sorts of different things, and he got very confused.
Perfect.
He didn't even like the first season. Yeah, it's interesting. All right. Here's an important next question. How many Doctors have we had since 1963 to the present date? 61 years later.
61 years. Okay, so I'm just gonna right off tell you I know off the top of my head 4, because one was on the board game, one was a woman, one was like African American, and one was David Tennant. Was that 5?
African American.
Is he black?
He is black. That doesn't make him African American.
Oh, I thought he was. I thought he had like an accent.
He's Scottish Rwandan.
I didn't mean. Did I say African American? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, and I just didn't know. Oh wow, he's okay. So I thought that he was not only. I thought he was American. I don't know why I thought that. 12. Just there's no theory behind that. I just say 12.
Oh, you're pretty close. I think. Well, there have been various non-canonical doctors. I won't get into those, but of the canonical on-screen doctors, if you don't count weird side doctors, there are weird corner case doctors. Let's not go there. There have been 14.
Okay.
14. Shutigatwa
Oh, 14.
is the 14th
14.
doctor. Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad. I didn't do bad. So
And who are the ones you are remembering? Do you remember the famous one from the 20th century?
I I just remember David Tennant was one because I don't know why I watched David Tennant and something else, and there was always Doctor Who. I think I was watching one of those British panel shows. And then Jodie Whittaker,
Jodie Whittaker. Yeah, you've got the recent
right?
doctors down. Yeah.
And then but there was that one guy. I don't know about the 20th century, but are you talking about the guy that was like on the board game and everything?
That may well be
I
him. What does he look like?
I don't know.
Does
The
he?
only reason I wrote a trivia question about Doctor Who for for a board game category, part of a quiz, but I can't remember anything about that. My mind went. Phew. Um, but I'm assuming there also was the original one, and that was in
Yeah,
1960.
yeah. He was called.
So I'm sorry. You keep on informing me. Who were they?
Well, from 1963 to 6, we had William Hartnell, the original Doctor. I could tell you all about all these actors, but I won't at this point. 66 to 69 had the great character actor Patrick Troughton. 70 to 74, John Pertwee, who was a comedian with a big nose. He played Wurzel Gummidge. Does that mean anything to you? Probably doesn't. But Wurzel Gummidge was a scarecrow. He played a scarecrow in. Yeah, all the CVs of these British actors are going to be mystifying to you. Then we had from 1974 to 1981, the classic Doctor, the one you probably remembering from off a board game is Tom Baker, who has a
Yes,
floppy
that
hat,
sounds right. Tom
dresses
Baker. Yeah.
like the character in the Toulouse-Lautrec
Yes.
poster.
1974 to 91.
74 to 81, so he was Doctor for
81. Okay.
for seven
Sorry. Go ahead.
seasons. And, the world I was born into was Tom Baker's world. He bestrode Doctor Who like a colossus. He became like a household figure, and he probably is the main reason.
That's the board game guy.
The main reason Doctor Who sort of had a mystique which has lasted to this day is that Tom Baker kind of got into everyone's got into the popular consciousness.
So is he your favorite?
He's not my personal favourite. That he is very good, and it is like if people say, "Oh, Doctor Who used to be really good," there's a classic era. They're probably talking about Tom Baker, and maybe even talking about 74 to 76, and it was all gothic horror. It was all quite dark, and everyone had the willies scared out of them as children by some really terrifying.
Now I want to watch that. That
yeah.
I'd watch.
Right, then we had three Doctors in the 1980s. They are blinking, you would miss them, but they are Peter Davison, Colin Baker, the second Baker, and Sylvester McCoy, whose is my personal favourite era of Doctor Who, but it's a controversial choice.
Okay.
Then Doctor Who was off air for a long time. There was a TV.
Oh.
There was an American co-production TV movie in the 90s with Paul McGann. He's quite a good actor. There's lots of McGanns out there. It came back in 2005. Christopher Eccleston did it for 1 year. And David Tennant. Now we're in the world that you of recent living memory.
Yeah.
David Tennant was in 2005, though. That's actually quite a long time ago now. That's like 20 years ago. David Tennant.
Yeah.
And David Tennant is kind of the Tom Baker of the modern age, I think, in the sense that everyone took Doctor Who to their hearts again. It was in Britain. It was like part of the popular consciousness. Everyone was like,
I'm going to be very honest. I can't understand what he's saying.
He's not saying it in his real accent, of course. David Tennant is a very Scottish man, and for some reason, he chose to do it in a sort of estuary English, all right, mate, kind of Cockney geezer. It's a bit weird. Yeah.
Yeah. In interviews, I just can't understand what he's
Oh, in
saying half the
interviews
time.
he's Scottish. Yeah, you probably are like,
Yeah.
what on earth is going
I
on?
don't. I've never seen. Let's put it here. I've never seen a Doctor Who episode except for those
What?
3 minutes or something. I've never seen one.
All right, all right. Well, anyway, eventually David Tennant left. He was
I know.
replaced by
How are we
Matt.
still friends?
He's replaced by Matt Smith, who is going. He's a great actor in my opinion. He has gone on to. He's in House of the Dragon, things like that now. He's in a bunch of films, not necessarily great films. He's a great actor though. Love him. Then Peter Capaldi, who might be better known for The Thick of It. Have you ever heard of that? Seen that? He's a sweary
I think we're cutting up.
political. What do you call it? Like a political fixer? I don't know, but it's British politics, and he's plays. Should remember his name, Malcolm something. Anyway, but he's another very good actor. They've had a run of very good actors. Then we had Jodie Whittaker. Personally, I didn't like the guy running that era, but I do like her. I thought she was a great choice. And then Ncuti Gatwa is number 14. We're up to 14.
He's the guy who's from Scottish Rwandan.
He's Scottish Rwandan. He was in Sex Education.
Oh.
If you've ever seen that, so. But
No.
he is definitely the most out and proud Doctor we've ever had. He is quite a flamboyant Doctor. Oh, Ncuti Gatwa was also Ken in the Barbie movie, not Ryan Gosling Ken, but another Ken.
Okay.
So
I haven't seen the Barbie.
We now have a Doctor who sort of.
I'm glad of that.
We now have a Doctor who sort of swans around in muscle shirts, and he's quite young and attractive, and calls people babes and things. It's quite a different show at this point from what it was in 1963 when he was basically the professor from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, and now he is Ken from Barbie. You know, it's like how do we get from there to here? I don't know. Well, I can probably tell you.
I don't know why, but in my mind, I'm seeing Tom Baker looking like someone from A Clockwork Orange. Is it the same hat?
He's got a floppy hat. He doesn't wear a bowler hat though. No.
Okay.
If you've ever
I gotta
seen,
look at him again.
There's a certain Toulouse-Lautrec poster, or maybe Oscar Wilde actually. If you look at a picture of Oscar Wilde,
I like Toulouse-Lautrec.
Really camping it up, or Toulouse-Lautrec, they both looked a bit like that kind of.
I did an art project on Toulouse-Lautrec. Cool guy.
Bohemian character.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the Doctor Who's been around for many years. How many seasons of Doctor Who have there been?
Seasons.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I don't understand British TV. Like, there's a season. What'd you say?
It might come up in trivia. How many seasons of Doctor Who?
But the season. Well, I mean, in American TV, there's a long season. In Britain, I've watched TV shows, and I feel like they only have 6 episodes.
Yeah, that is a common thing.
So there's probably like 300 seasons. 300 seasons.
Yeah,
I don't
it doesn't
know.
work that way. We don't get like 30 seasons a year, just really short ones. We get 1 season a year, and it's short.
Oh, okay. So you don't have you have. In my mind, I thought you had more seasons because you guys had less episodes. You kind of like space them out like a quarterly. All right, so I'm wrong. I'm gonna say seasons of 6, and you've gone for 40 years, more than that, 16. I'm gonna toss out a number. 90 seasons.
90. Oh, there's been about 40. There were 26.
40. Okay, I guess my math is really bad. I'm sorry.
There were 26.
Oh, wait, you did say there was a hiatus, right?
There was a long hiatus, yeah, it's important.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
It got cancelled in 1989, and then it was brought back in 2005.
Okay, there's that big gap. All right, that's where I'm going.
In the 20th century, there were 26 seasons, ranging from the first season was 42 episodes long. I think.
Oh wow.
Or 39, and the second was 42. The last season of Doctor Who in the 20th century was 14 episodes long. These are all 20-minute episodes, 25 minutes.
I might just be watching the wrong British comedies or something. Just thought they were long, like shorter amount of. Sorry about that. See, I'm telling you, this is brilliant because I didn't know any of this.
well, it's not very. This is all pretty numerical, which is upsetting. I wanted to get on to the.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to use that information, but I'm glad I have it in my brain.
Yeah, so in 2005, Doctor Who came back.
Yeah.
It was not season 27, though, it was series 1, I guess. We had 13 series of BBC produced
Sorry.
Doctor Who based in Wales. So it's a BBC Wales show, really. So if you watch modern Doctor Who and it's all set in Cardiff for some reason, is once again season 1. They had a Doctor Who has now been acquired by Disney. It shows on Disney Plus.
Disney is going to take over the world.
Well, I do feel like Disney want to. I feel like Disney have a vested interest in capturing lots of beloved properties. Like now, Disney
Yes.
runs Marvel and so on. You know, they were probably like, "Oh, Doctor Who. We will have that." Whether or not they care about it, it's like better to have it than to let anyone else have it.
Has there ever been a Welsh Doctor Who?
No, which is quite surprising, given that it has been in
Cardiff,
Wales.
right?
It has been based out of Wales. A Welsh doctor would sound a bit. For some reason, they're always casting Scottish doctors. We're on about four Scots at this point, but no Welsh doctors to date. Outrageous.
I really couldn't. If somebody from Wales came into my house and talked to me in their accent, I would have no idea that they were from Wales. Like I don't know what a Welsh accent sounds like, but I know what a Scottish accent sounds like because of David Tennant,
Oh, a Welsh accent.
and I can't
It's really
understand what
quite.
he said.
The Welsh accent can really be quite lovely, but yeah, it's a less well-known
But
accent.
you're from Wales, but you have an English accent.
Yeah, I grew up in Deeside though, which is just on the English side of the border, over from the Wirral and Liverpool. So it's kind of less like a Welsh accent and more like a
Oh,
kind of watered down Scouse accent. It's not a particularly pretty accent.
I'm
But
gonna
as
look at a map of England because I'm so confused where things are. I thought Liverpool was in the south.
I've got one
It's
on
in
the
the north.
wall. Oh no,
Oh,
maybe you can't see. Is there a big map of England there? Yeah, there it is. Okay.
wow.
Anyway,
Oh, nice.
I have that there by my bedside to maintain a bit of English culture by osmosis. I'm never far from England, despite being geographically very far removed from it at the moment.
Put your
All
digestives
right.
on your bedside table so you
You
can snack on something.
your dog is called Ninja. Here's a question for you. What was the doctor's dog called in the 70s and 80s?
Was it a play on who? Like, was it where?
It was a play
Or
on words. It's a play on words. It was a It was a robot.
Houdini?
It
Is
was
it
a.
Houdini?
It was a
No.
robot dog.
Oh, robot
What would
dogs.
you call a robot dog?
Diesel.
It was called K9. K9 is his robot dog.
Oh, gotcha.
There have been some spin-off K9 shows. Apparently in Australia they did a kids show for a few years called K9, where K9 could now fly and things like that, and was
Cool.
super rounded and cute. And I don't really hold with that. I have watched a lot of Doctor Who spin-off media, but I drew the line at tracking down an Australian kids show with a loose connection to Doctor Who.
Disney will probably own it, so you.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Disney. I think Disney should just say, right, we're going to boot out the old guard and just make this property our own. I would quite like to see that. Doctor Who should probably not be run in an American style, but I like the idea of a bit of fresh blood in it.
Have you been to Disney World?
Yes. Only the
What?
only the one in Florida. Yes. Oh,
What were you doing there?
I've been there like 3 times. I went there as a kid, and I went there as an adult once. I was hanging out in Miami, and I met up with some people who were going to Disney World, and I went with them, and we were all in our 20s, I guess. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. We went on all
Sure.
the. It's good if you're older because you can, you
I
can.
only went once before I had kids, or two. I went twice before I had kids, and then I went another time.
I hear they have. I mean,
I'm a big
they have Star Wars rides and things at Disney now, don't they? Is that Disney? They've
I
got.
think so. I like I said, I'm terrible. We went and we didn't go to any of the fun parks. I don't think we didn't go to Universal or anything. but it's okay. We'll go back. We'll go back. My brother lives like a couple hours away from the one in Canada, one in California. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. More importantly than the Doctor's dog K9, who are the Doctor's most deadly and long-standing enemies? Like the Star Trek equivalent would be the Klingons or the Borg or something. What's that in Doctor Who?
Do they look like spiders?
Maybe, but not on the outside.
Oh, no, I don't know. Would it be? Is it again a wordplay? Like, is it something like?
I believe it's not
Nothing.
a wordplay, although
Okay.
there was a rumor
Tarantula.
spread by the
Huh?
creator that he had got the name from a dictionary. Sorry, an encyclopedia where he looked at a set of volumes of the encyclopedia and said, Daltalek, that'll be the name of my creatures. But that makes no sense at all.
His name Dalpalex?
They're called Daleks. But he said,
Oh.
there was an encyclopedia, it said DAL-LEK, which can't be true if you think about it for a moment, because what kind of encyclopedia would have D to L as its second volume and just A to D as its first volume? It doesn't add up.
I don't know. That's yeah. Come on.
Anyway, the Daleks, do you not know what the Daleks are? So they are sort of like little spidery octopus creatures, but they travel around in Mark III travel machines. They look more like pepper pots with a sink plunger and an egg whisk coming out of the front.
Explain what a pepper pot is.
You've got a salt shaker and you've got a pepper pot. Right? Do you?
I do not have a pepper pot. I don't know what that is.
Shake your pepper out of?
Are you talking about the thing that you grind, like a pepper grinder?
Yeah, maybe. Well, just like a salt shaker and a pepper pot.
I'm googling a pepper pot. Go ahead.
Pepper pot.
I've heard it before, and I've just never googled it.
Pepper pots are really important to British TV. They're intrinsic because Monty Python had pepper pots.
It's a food item. That's what I was thinking. The food item, pepper pot.
If you ever see a Monty Python woman going, "Oh hello, oh what's going on here?" That's a pepper pot. That's a pepper pot in Monty Python lore. Something entirely different in Doctor Who lore. They're what Daleks look like.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, I don't own a pepper pot, but now I am aware of what they are. That's cool. Okay, right. Gotcha.
All right, and
what? I don't remember what that was. A Dalek. Thank you.
What is another important question? What is the Doctor's chosen weapon when he's waving something around? He points it at a door and the lock explodes. What's he using?
Is it an umbrella?
No, that's a reasonable guess. Sylvester McCoy had a good umbrella with a question mark handle.
I feel like that's a different villain.
The Doctor's number one weapon.
I feel like you're going to tell me, and I'm going to say I do know that. Is it a cane?
No.
A boat? No. Like a bow from a violin.
It's not. Is
it just an object you'd find in the house, and all of a sudden he'd whip it out, or is it actually something unique to the Doctor Who?
It's kind of an object you'd find in the house, but it's also something very unique to the Doctor Who mythos. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that could be so many things. Can you put me out of misery? What is it?
Well, he's a doctor. What else would he have but a screwdriver? He has a sonic screwdriver.
Oh, like the kind that look like this?
Yeah, so famously, he doesn't really ever use a gun. And sometimes he's very sanctimonious. He's like, oh, guns are the worst things in the entire world. Anyone who brandishes a gun is not my friend, but he does like to wave around a screwdriver. And his screwdriver occasionally does things like blow up minefields, or it can open doors unless they're made of wood. Famously, I don't know. It's a bit weird. It's a bit of a weird device. It is a bit like
idea.
A bit.
I think a screwdriver is a lot more handy.
A bit like Harry Potter's wand. It's like it can do sort of almost anything that you need it to do for the plot purpose. But then when you need the Doctor to be trapped somewhere, it's like, oh, it doesn't work on wood. So we're stuck in this jail cell. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he's famously a pacifist, and he likes to solve problems with his screwdriver.
Oh.
Shooty gut
you know what? I feel like I've seen something where he's in the TARDIS. He comes out. Are these things orange? No,
What
maybe I'm
orange?
wrong. Dalek?
Daleks. They can be quite colourful.
Maybe not. No, maybe I'm having a moment. I've seen shows where somebody who's been on Doctor Who is on, and then they show a scene from Doctor Who. I think one of them, he can't. Is it Catherine Tate? Was she on?
Yeah, Catherine Tate was the
I
companion
saw
to.
her on the Graham Norton show, and they showed a clip from her on Doctor Who, and for some reason I thought there was, I don't know, maybe it's because she has red hair. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
She might
All
be a
right,
Dalek here.
I'm sorry. Right now, I feel very silly. I have a 0. I don't think I've guessed anything anywhere correctly.
Various Oscar winners have appeared in Doctor Who. I was going to ask you if you knew any of the famous Doctor Who alumni.
Can we narrow it down? Are they people from England? Are
Yes.
they
Oh
Oscar
no,
winners from
actually I
the
don't know.
United States?
One of them is I think American. Yeah.
Oh no.
He's a pretty big actor nowadays.
What's the name of the guy that died who played Snape on Harry Potter?
Oh yes, Alan Rickman.
Is he?
He's
Was
ne-
he
he
in
has never
Dublin?
been in Doctor Who. Bizarrely, the list of Harry Potter alumni does correlate
What
quite
about the
considerably.
Ian McKellen? No,
Ian
no,
McKellen, I
no, that's wrong. That's the guy's name, right?
yeah.
No.
I want to say that Ian McKellen did some voice work for Doctor Who, but he certainly has not been in it.
Oh,
There are some pretty big British actors who have been in it. If you run through the list of Harry Potter people, it won't take you
okay.
long
Maggie
to
Smith?
find a few. I
No.
don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm trying to think of who else has been in Harry Potter. Um, I don't even know the name of the guy who plays Harry Potter.
Ah, Daniel
Um,
Radcliffe. No,
Daniel Radcliffe. No, that's not him
no,
because he's never won an Oscar.
those
What
youngsters.
about the guy that played God, I haven't seen. I only saw the first Harry Potter, and it was really good. I just don't watch movies. Um,
One of the Dumbledores has been in Doctor Who, but not the first Dumbledore. The subsequent Dumbledore.
there's been more. Oh,
Yeah.
Dumbledore is the older man with the headmaster or the guy.
Uh,
Yeah, when you said Dumbledore in my mind, I was thinking the Weasleys. Um, okay, so I don't know his name, but
that's
that's
Michael Gambon.
Gambon. Okay.
Ollivander, the Wand Merchant, is actually been in Doctor Who. In fact, he has played the Doctor. A weird.
Michael King.
No, this is John Hurt. Remember him from Alien, Chespus?
Yes, yes, yes. Of course. I didn't
So
know that he was
yeah,
British.
he played a Doctor that was in between the eighth and the ninth Doctors, very confusingly. So when I say there have been 14 Doctors, arguably there have been like 23 or something. But we're counting canonical Doctors. He is a
Oh,
supernumerary Doctor lying between 8 and 9. So whether or not you count him as a real Doctor is
I
arguable.
count.
He
I
was.
count all the Doctor Who's.
Anyway, it's nice to say that John Hurt has been the Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
John Hurt. I'm just looking to see if I. Oh, okay. I do know him. John Hurt. Yes.
All right. So the Doctor is. Suppose the Doctor is like Sherlock Holmes, which he is. Who is the Doctor's Moriarty, his nemesis throughout space
His
and time?
nemesis. Jeez. So the nemesis is in charge of the Daleks,
No.
or is it just a different
Have
enemy?
occasionally teamed up, but it's a different enemy.
God, I should have studied. Um, can you give me a hint? Would I know this person? I mean, would I have heard this name before?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's a suitably portentous name to match the Doctor. All time
So
lost.
Doctor Who. Is it? Is British are so proper. They're not gonna have stupid names like Revenjo or something like that.
Revenger would have been a much better name. Yeah, it's good.
I
like
don't
that.
know. Is it inferior?
The Doctor's foe, since about the early 70s, is the Master. He says things like, "I am the Master. You will obey me."
Is that really the guy's name, Master?
The
It's just
Master. He
Master.
calls himself the Master. The Doctor and the Master are from the same planet. Do you know what planet that is? You know what species that is? You know,
Oh, I didn't know that there was a whole thing.
did you know? Did you know that he was not a human?
No, I did not.
No, he's got two hearts.
Do we are we supposed to believe that there are different Doctor Who's, or are we supposed to just believe that it's one guy through this whole entire
They
thing?
occasionally meet up. They occasionally meet up. There have been.
Okay, so we know when we're watching this that they didn't get replaced, that they are different, that they're
Yeah.
going to be
Do you
different
not
people.
know?
It's
Do
not
you?
like when a dog dies in a TV show.
No, it's not the same person.
Oh,
It's not like James Bond. I've never understood James Bond because they sort of pretend that it's the same, and like
gotcha.
sometimes M and
Right.
Q will be the same, and James Bond will walk through the door, and they don't say James Bond.
Yeah, that's not Sean Connery.
You're the new guy. There's sort of some pretense that
Okay,
James Bond
the
is the
Master.
same, but I've never quite understood that. So it's best to think of Doctor Who in a similar way as
So,
Bond. It's like
can you see him, or is he just a voice?
the Master. Yeah, you see him. He's been played by a number of people because he. I was going to
Okay.
ask you, the process by which a doctor turns into another doctor is very special.
Do they go back in time and shake hands?
Yeah, oh, arguably that happened in
Did
the
they
episode
wait? Did they like
Logopolis
give each other
in
their weapon?
1981. No, so they regenerate. They regenerate. So if the doctor has a really bad day and explodes or drinks some poison or something really bad happens to him, he regenerates, and in a cloud of regeneration energy, transforms into a new body. And so
Wow,
yeah, so it's a brilliant
that's
idea because
exciting.
it's the only way you could possibly have a story that's been going for 61 years and
61.
maintain the pretense that it's the same show.
A lot of the shows, though, like you would have to have watched the show before to understand what's going on. Like they're in a sequence.
I don't know. I
Like it
mean,
wasn't like, okay, this show is now about meeting up with the Durliks on this planet, and this show is about meeting up with the Master after he did this act, or it's a continuation.
yeah, some fans get very exercised by the fact that Doctor Who isn't as good as it used to be. It's a travesty, but I quite like the fact that it is basically not really the same show at any point. It kind of is. It kind of is. Occasionally, it'll
Yeah.
hark back to something from a very long time ago, and the continuity love in my heart will go, oh, it's so good. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, and the sane people who run Doctor Who in the 21st century are like, yeah, we can't possibly be a pure continuation of the old show. That makes no sense whatsoever. It,
Mm.
it's a different time. If it looked the same as it did in 1963, A, it would be in black and white, and it would look terrible. But B, it wouldn't. It's not. What was good
Yeah.
television in 1963 for children may well not be what's good television in 2021. 2021. You can see what year I'm living in. I'm 3 years behind.
That's all right.
2024 is where we live.
So currently, we're still using a TARDIS,
Yep,
a police phone box, even though we don't have
yep,
any more.
yep. So in the very first episode, the Doctor says, "Oh, the chameleon circuit is not working because in theory it should change every time it comes to a new planet." Uh, and that's why it was stuck as a police box in 1963. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
how strange! It seems to have broken down, and now we're stuck as a police box, which was a very memorable visual element in like the early stories. They go to an alien planet, and there's a familiar-looking British telephone box on, in a crater surrounded by alien ants or whatever. That's quite good. But yeah, it would be a weird thing to change at this point, even though it's kind
Yeah.
of from a completely different age, because it's quite nice. I mean, they could change it and have the chameleon circuit work, and the Doctor would basically be like Quantum Leap or something. He'd blend in into every.
Yeah. Put it
It's
away in the
quite
grave.
nice that he can't blend in. Yeah, he literally turns up, and it's the weirdest thing anyone on any of these planets has ever seen. They're like, why is there a freaking blue box and a madman waving a screwdriver at me? It's quite
What?
nice. It's quite nice and British.
Still trying to wrap my head around the concept of a TARDIS or a phone box for the police station. I mean, say somebody is trying to murder you.
Yeah.
if you run into a TARDIS and dial the police, they're gonna be like, oh God, I gotta go. I mean, how quickly does the police come?
Okay, well, traditionally, a police
Or is
telephone
it
book.
like, oh, there's a car accident, let me grab the TARDIS, let me go into the police
If you
phone box?
run into the TARDIS, though, there's a problem with calling the police. Do you know what happens when someone runs into the TARDIS from off the street? It has happened in,
Like in the movie or in the show
yeah,
or
in the
in
show, in
British
the
life?
show, in the show.
Oh, what happens when they go into the TARDIS? Does a
This
TARDIS
is
like
a key.
eject them,
No, no, no.
or does it? They can't get out and they get evaporated.
So they do a massive double take every time because what's inside the TARDIS?
Oh,
Do
what's
you know
inside the
this?
TARDIS?
Yeah,
Like what we should be seeing? Probably like a phone and a phone book.
yeah. But what is actually inside it in the show?
I haven't ever seen the show, so I'm
Oh, you don't know.
assuming like a bunch of gadgets, like a bunch of buttons and things you can push
Yes,
to go to another world,
that is
another
correct.
time.
But here's a key point: the TARDIS is dimensionally transcendental, so it's much bigger on the inside than on the outside.
Oh, that's cool.
Arguably, it is infinitely big on the inside. It's
So
never
you
been.
go in and it looks like a big tunnel,
You go
or
in,
not?
you're in like a gigantic. I mean, it used to be a bit smaller than it was because of budget restrictions, but now it's like you walk in and it's like walking into a cathedral. So people often run back
That's
out and
fun.
run around the box, and they go, "What? What? What?" It is. It's a little box on the outside, and inside I'm in this vast hangar-like space. So
Do they ever do like a fun thing where some guy is drunk and stumbles in there and then walks out?
yeah.
Like
yes.
just to humor just like haha.
Yeah. They have
They do
played.
that?
They've played with it. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
cool. Yeah. Or it's raining and somebody needs to get in because it's wet. Then they realize that there's a bunch of yeah.
The
That
famous
would be
people,
blow
Oscar
my mind.
winners, potential Oscar winners who have been in Doctor Who. Carrie Mulligan was in Doctor Who before
Okay.
she started winning lots of Oscars. Andrew Garfield, he's the one who probably is American, right? He
Oh,
was,
you're talking about people recent. I'm
yeah.
thinking like
Oh, you're
back
thinking
in the
back in the day.
day.
Back in the
Uh,
day, I would say, there's a bunch of Harry Potter style people, maybe.
yeah.
No, I think back
Wow.
in the day, no one really famous. Though, here's something.
I would never have guessed Carrie Mulligan
Yeah,
or Andrew
a
Garfield,
very good
even if you
episode.
said present day.
Carrie Mulligan was in a very good episode of Doctor Who called Blink. Andrew Garfield was in a very bad episode of Doctor Who called Daleks in Manhattan. So take from that what you will.
I
Carrie
will.
Mulligan, great episode. Andrew Garfield.
All
Uh,
right.
all right, here the classic Doctor Who. I would say there's not a lot of really big names in it, but here's something. Who is the most famous? Almost certainly the most famous writer to have been the script editor. They called it basically the showrunner in
Hmm.
charge of the scripts of Doctor Who. Because there is one name I think that jumps out if you looked through the list of names who have been the
Ray Bradbury.
Oh, that would have been nice.
No, he's
It's
American.
someone in the late 70s, and he is much more well known for science fiction of
Frank Herbert.
a different franchise.
Not Frank
Not
Herbert.
Frank Herbert. It's not an
Is it
American.
Hubert?
It is a Brit.
Oh,
Is Frank Herbert American? I assume he
is
is.
it Herbert or Hubert? Is it Herbert
Herbert.
for Dune?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been watching Dune. I think it's all right, but it's
I've never seen it, but I did say something funny about how somebody said that Dune ripped off Star Wars, and I was like, "That's amazing," since Dune was
yeah,
created like
yeah, yeah,
20
yeah,
years before or something. Um,
yeah. Yeah, it's like
somebody was a famous writer who's British in the 1970s who may or may not be affiliated with science fiction.
yeah, he's much better known, I think, in America for a different science fiction creation of his. But he's one of my
Michael
favorite.
Crichton.
No.
Again, I don't know if he's British.
He's
I don't know. Fill me in. Am I
all right.
close?
So in the late 70s, the script editor was one Mr. Douglas Adams, who is better known for the
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
Hitchhiker's
him,
Guide.
but I
Yeah,
didn't think he was British.
he is very British. Yeah, he died very
That's his
young. It's very
title. Yeah,
sad.
he did. He died. Didn't he come out of the gym and have a heart attack?
Maybe he was only in his 40s, I think. He's like my age. Oh my God, he's younger than me. Oh
He's
my
younger than
goodness.
me.
Uh,
I You're going to hate this, but I have started and stopped reading about 500 times A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But I think I got the basic premise. It was a good book, but I just, for some reason, it was a good book and I was enjoying it. And then something else caught my attention. And it's happened multiple times now, but I still own the book. But I will read it.
I feel like you should probably be able to get through the first two in the trilogy, which is of course a five-part
Yeah.
trilogy. But I
I've
don't
got
know.
to wrap my
The
head around
further the
sci-fi.
further you get in, I think the less. I kind of lost it in about book four. It was very strange. But yeah, Douglas Adams was a great Doctor Who script editor, and he basically wrote
That's
one
interesting.
of the best ever episodes in my mind. City of Death is probably the episode I would say if you actually want to go and see what Doctor Who was about
City of Death.
in the
I'll
old
look
days,
into it.
don't watch the first episode. You'll be just like, what is this? Watch City of Death because it's
Gotcha.
written by
City of
Douglas
Death.
Adams. Has a bunch of great actors in it. It's got Julian Glover as the villain, and Julian Glover he's the Bond villain in something. I always want to say
He
it's
sounds like is he albino?
Julian
No.
Glover. He's an eminence grise, I would say. Don't think he's
You're very
albino.
tolerant of people like myself. I gotta look up
So
Julian Glover, like glove.
Julian Glover, yep. He's a good actor.
Oh,
Anyway,
I know who he is. Oh,
John Cleese
I
has a.
thought he was albino. He's not albino.
He might be a little bit. I don't know. He's quite. I see what you're getting at. I feel like Julian Glover is quite white in my
Oh no,
memory.
he's not. Because this picture of him, he
That's white
doesn't look
hair.
it. But yeah, no, he's not. He's not. I'm
He's a good
sorry. I
actor.
didn't mean it.
He's actually been in Doctor Who multiple times. Julian Glover, I believe. But
God,
yeah.
so
Uh,
many of your crossword fans are gonna shake their head at this. I'm sorry to
oh
everybody I've
dear.
offended
They're like, why
for
is
my
he not solving
ignorance.
crosswords? What's he doing talking about Doctor Who?
I
This
really
is
am smart in a sense, just not with Doctor
this
Who.
is a different thing. Well, this. Yeah. John Cleese has a cameo in City of Death. It's got the best script. It's really silly. It plays with time travel in a way that people have never really done before since until the Stephen Moffat era, which is Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. Yeah.
So what was the point of the time travel? Like, why are we going back in time?
Well, Doctor Who in 1963 was conceived as a show for kids with a bit of science fiction stuff in it, but also with quite an educational remit. So he would intersperse adventures on alien planets with trips to history. So literally, the
Hmm.
first story goes back to the Stone Age, and no one really likes that one except for me. I think it's all right. And then he goes and fights the Daleks on the planet Skaro, but then he comes back to, and there's 7 episodes where he's literally does joins Marco Polo on his journeys through Cathay, so that's really interesting. And then he faces more
Oh.
aliens in rubber suits on the planet Marinus, and then he visits the Aztecs. Then he faces the Sensorites on the
What?
Sensphere, more sci-fi
You,
nonsense, and then he goes back to the Reign of Terror and Robespierre's time. So there's a
does he
strict.
go like to the Aztecs to get like say something to fight somebody?
No,
Like, does he have to go back to like the
no.
to the Aztecs to get a magic recipe that he needs?
So
Like,
now,
is there a reason he's going back to these certain times?
no, he literally can't control where the TARDIS is going. Back in the old days.
Gotcha. Oh, that's cool.
Nowadays, they've kind of
Sounds
brushed
like
that
a
under the
Twilight
carpet.
Zone episode.
It was very interesting in the old days. So it would strictly alternate, pretty strictly alternate between historical and sci-fi, and it would be pure accident. He couldn't control where he was going. He was pretty much lost in
That's
space and time, so he'd just go anywhere at random. And the story
terrifying.
tended to be like, oh my god, we're now trapped in Aztec times. Barbara has been mistaken for a goddess, and Ian has been captured by the evil Aztecs, and forced to fight in the arena, or whatever. So it, nowadays the Doctor is much more in control. He's not always in control because Doctor Who is about a very haphazard individual. He's kind of powerful, but also kind of messy.
Does he
Yeah.
try and look different? Like, does he is he trying to blend in with the people that he comes to? Like, when he goes to see the Aztecs, does he look like he could pass for an Aztec?
Yeah, he gets. Yeah, I think
Or
they
does he
dress
just
up.
look? Does he come out wearing pants and the?
can't remember if he does anything special, but he does blend in well enough to get a marriage proposal from an Aztec. He's hanging out with this elderly Aztec lady called Kamika, and then she gives him a cup of hot chocolate, and he's like, "Oh, thank you." And apparently, that's an Aztec marriage proposal. So that's part of the hijinks
Hmm.
of the episode. It's like, "Oh my God, I'm now betrothed to an Aztec." It was good days. For my
When you look,
money, it's very sad because in the '60s, everyone got well into the Daleks. They were like, "Yeah, we love this sci-fi stuff," and no one really liked the historicals as much. But for my money, those historicals are much more interesting and fun.
I
Than,
think I would like that too. I think that's more interesting to me.
and
Time travel.
historicals in the '60s, they only lasted for 3 years, but they were quite often straight. It was like they would turn up in history, and historical things would happen, and they would try and blend in, and there wouldn't be aliens and there wouldn't be technology. It would just be an adventure in history. Whereas nowadays, there literally is not a case where it's not like, oh, an alien is trying to subvert the timeline and secretly,
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
like truly sci-fi. Now there's not a real history bent.
So it's pseudo historicals are the best we get for historicals,
Oh,
and that's one thing I liked about the Jodie Whittaker era. Not my favorite era, but it did bring back a little bit more history. Did bring
yeah.
back a bit. They were still pseudo historicals, but there was an episode around about the time of the partition of India and Pakistan that was interesting. There's an episode set in the time of Rosa Parks, so it's interesting for the
Wow.
Doctor
In
to meet
America.
Rosa Parks. Yep, Rosa
I guess
Parks.
Aztecs are Mexico, right?
Yeah, yeah. There was one where they were at the villa where Mary Shelley was writing Frankenstein, with a real Frankenstein, obviously a Frankenstein
That
Cyberman
would be
turning up.
cool. That's a good idea. Go
It
back
was.
when authors were writing stuff. I just found out something really interesting about Lewis Carroll, if you don't mind me sharing. Did you know that he had seizures that affected the part of his brain that controlled vision? So he would see things
Oh, really?
larger than they were. So when he was
Oh.
writing about um, Alice in Wonderland and how she would be a large and then small, and
Oh,
that had
yeah.
something to do with the seizure.
He is one of the most interesting people, I think, in history. Basically, he's such an interesting character and such a
Yeah.
brilliant man. Why has the Doctor never met Lewis Carroll? Let's ask ourselves this. That's a question that I'm going to write in right now and
Um,
with a script. Oh, he's so good.
yeah, why not? That would be. Or has he been to Toulouse-Lautrec? What is it? The Moulin Rouge?
No, he's never done decadent France. That would be quite fun. Time is ripe.
Is it Moulin Rouge still there? The Red Mill? Is it the Red Mill? Right? Is it still there
Yeah.
in
Yes,
Paris? Have you been?
I went to Paris last month
Mm-hmm.
and we walked past the Moulin Rouge. It's still there. Uh,
Nice.
no evidence of Bohemians drinking absinthe on the. There's lots of tourists.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
I'm
great
sure.
shame.
I'd rather see that than the Eiffel Tower, though.
What was I going to say? The Doctor met the Beatles last week in the latest episode. It wasn't
Oh,
very.
cool.
It wasn't entirely convincing. It was a bit weird.
Were the Beatles? What do you think? Were the Beatles bigger in America or in England?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, the Beatles were enormous.
Do you
They,
think that there's more like diehard Beatle fans that are in from America or from when I say America, I meant like United States or
I feel like they might
from
be one of the
actual.
very, very, very rare British acts who genuinely broke America, in the sense that Americans were like, "Yeah, we like this too." I feel like
Oh, I
Americans
know
are
so many people
into the Beatles as much as Brits are.
addicted.
And what fascinates me is the Beatles were really only like recording for like 5 or 6 years. It seems absurd now when we look at the careers of
Yeah.
someone like Elton John. It's like 50 years of solid, solid output. It's like the Beatles
Yeah.
did everything they did. They had this catalogue, which in my mind is bigger than the catalogues of almost anyone else. But it did it in like 5 or 6 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. That is true. They're very prolific. I will say this. There are some Beatles songs that I really, really like, and then some that are just so bad. Like I can't listen to them. It just makes me ugh.
Which one's about?
Um,
I think they're all sort of interesting.
really, they're so different. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole like
What?
love me do and please
Oh,
please,
the
oh,
early
it just
stuff.
drives
Yeah,
me
yeah.
insane.
Well, I think the Beatles are actually a
Oh,
lot
I
like
hate that stuff.
The Beatles are a lot like Doctor Who in that sense, in that there are different eras, and I think when I was
Yeah,
young,
that's
experimental stuff, and now I
yeah.
go back to it. I think there's something about the energy of the early stuff that I'm like, yeah, this is why people like the
I just
Beatles.
remember hating. I think you're really good at this. I mean, you have a Shakespearean bent too, but like, I just really like it. I don't like to try and guess what people are saying in their songs, and there hidden meanings. And is there an octopus in a garden? I don't know what that means. Like, am I supposed to mean something?
What could
That
Lucy in the sky
whatever.
with diamonds possibly mean? Is it a
I
little
just
girl
want
in a sky with
like
diamonds, or is the fact that LSD is in there relevant? I don't know.
I mean, some of the stuff is dissect a song, I guess, or whatever, but a book or a poem or whatever. Yeah, I guess so. It makes sense if somebody explains it to me, but I don't want to go through all that. I like the straightforward. In writing too, if it gets too flowery, I just don't. I skip a lot of it. I don't
Yeah,
need all the description. I just need the. You know what? I would be fine with reading a book that just had dialogue.
yeah.
That's it. I don't. This is what they said. And that's it. But yeah, that's.
I do.
Sorry, I don't mean to go off on
I
the
do
Beatles.
feel like I feel like it's possible to overrate the Beatles lyrics. I do think like John Lennon's lyrics. Well, I quite enjoy them. Are often just quite nonsensical. All the goo 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 goo. I am the
Yeah, the
walrus. I
nonsense.
am the Eggman. Come on, that's crazy. And the way
What
that
does that mean?
it makes this is one of my pet peeves. It's not about the Beatles. It's about Bob Dylan and how people say, oh yes, Bob Dylan. Of course, he was a whole different category of artist. I mean, all these modern rock stars just pumping out rubbish. Bob Dylan was a real poet, and he's got his lyrics are all things like "Let me tell you about the cat that was always getting wet. He's wearing a bibbity bob." No, the bibbity bobbity hat is David Bowie. But there is something that a
Comes off.
Nobel Prize. I'm like, what is going on here? You cannot give Bob Dylan a Nobel Prize for literature just because you are a beardy 60-year-old man who liked his songs back in the day. Don't get that at all.
Oh, you think that's
Sorry
what
if it's any
happened?
Bob Dylan fans who are accidentally listening to this, because I've probably just mortally offended you. But I've never seen. I mean, he's a great, great rock star, good lyricist, great songwriter. Did some very important things in the '60s. But as
Yeah,
a literary saint, I don't think he is. I don't think he is.
I have the same feeling as you. I think some people are very overrated. And then, you know what? I really don't like when people suggest classic novels to me on that regard too, because most of the classic novels that I read, again, I like a book that's really straightforward, not a lot of garbage. What did we have to read? We had to start reading Fountainhead, and I know, oh my God, I'm gonna get slammed for this. I was so bored.
Oh, I
But I
don't know.
really,
I
you know
think
what book
that's
I liked? I just recently read, not all the way through, but have you read Manhattan Transfer? That was a good classic book.
Oh, is that
Have
John
you read that?
John Dos Passos? I've
Yes, it's
no.
actually really, really good.
Okay, I'd like to read it because
Huh?
I have no idea who John Dos Passos is or what Manhattan Transfer is about. But it has come up in trivia, so that's how I was aware that he wrote Manhattan
So,
Transfer. And I would like
do
to
you
know
like a
more.
book?
I would like to
Do
know
you
more.
like? Well, I guess more. I guess in England it would be more like kind of Charles Dickens, where they kind of tell you that like the terrible things that are going on, and they also tell you the good things that are going on, like the people who are real poor and people who are just struggling, who people are making it, and people who are like elite, but they all have problems and different, you know, and it's kind of like that. That's what he's doing, and it takes place unsurprisingly in Manhattan, well, New York City, but it's really good. And I mean, when I was growing up, my favorite book was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and it's just a Sister
Oh
Carrie,
yeah,
like
yeah.
anything that has to delve with hardship,
So
especially in a major city, I was really into. So this is kind of
bring this back
this is kind
slightly
of
to trivia. There was a whole question in Learned League in the championship last year, and it was, what is the tree that grows in the tree that grows in Brooklyn? I had no idea whatsoever. And so I put in the wrong answer. Then I clicked through, and it was Tree of Heaven. And I had literally spent the last 2 weeks pulling up trees of heaven in my garden. Those freaking trees of heaven. You cannot extirpate them. They will just find a foothold anywhere and then grow into this incredibly strong. It's incredible. Yeah, I am perfectly happy that they became a metaphor for surviving in tough conditions. But those things are utter bastards. I hate them.
One last book, and then we'll go back to Doctor Who. But have you read? And this is a great book. I don't know. It comes up in trivia sometimes. Have you read A Confederacy of Dunces?
Oh no, I have it. I have it, and I
Fantastic.
want to read it. I'm aware it's good.
Yes,
It's like
absolutely. The dialogue is
I feel
amazing,
like
and
there's
everything pulls together at the end, so it's perfect. It's not one of those books where you're like, I don't understand. I gotta go back to like a couple of chapters, you know.
there
And you
are
see that this man, and I'm not gonna get too much into it. You see this man is just highly toxic to everything and everybody.
it's
I mean, he's
Ignatius
it's a great
Riley,
book.
isn't it? Yeah, I want to read that. I have not read Catch 22 by Joseph Heller, which I feel like might be in the
Never
same
in.
bracket. I have read a brilliant book by Joseph Heller, but being an iconoclast, I was like, I'm not reading Catch 22. I'm going to read Something Happened, which is a brilliant, brilliant book.
Oh,
Because it's a very
that's
long book.
lovely.
It's about 550 pages, that kind of thing,
Oh.
and nothing happens in it until the last page, and it's called Something Happened. And literally, it's just such a funny concept.
Spoiler. What is that movie you told me about and I watched and I could have strangled you? Oh, it was that Belgian movie
Oh,
where it was a
L'Aventura.
woman. Huh?
Was it L'Aventura?
No, it was just a woman who has a son and she's a prostitute,
Oh
but she lives
yeah,
with
no,
a
no,
normal
no, not
woman. And
L'Aventura.
oh, maybe my cousin recommended this. And by Wednesday, I'm like, what is the point of this?
I love that. Yeah, no, I've watched it. I've watched it. It's called
It's
Jean
like
Dielman,
so
23
long.
Quai du Commerce, Bruxelles, 1040 or something close to that. Very
I
good,
just
very good.
I'm going to put this out there as a mom of four kids who are really loud right now. Never would have a conversation with my kids about my sex life. Never. Nor would my kids ever ask me about it.
Have you ever been French? If you were French, it would just be what you would talk about at the dinner table over a glass of wine. With
But yes, you did
your
not
child
tease
would have a
me
glass of
like I
wine.
wanted.
I
No,
thought you were half. I
never.
thought you were half Swiss, basically.
I'm American. I would just tell them, hold on. Guys,
Yeah.
right now they have, you know what's funny? Really, I never am on this laptop and then I'm on it and it's like everybody has to come downstairs. All right, Doctor Who.
Who
Let me
knew
go
that
back to
Doctor Who
that.
would lead us to Jean Dielman, 23 Quai de Commerce,
I
Bruxelles?
absolutely knew it would go there because I don't think me and you have ever been able to stay on topic ever.
There is one thing though, I think that's a 70s movie, and I do feel like the production values of 70s movies are quite similar to those of 70s Doctor Who. I noticed this in Bunwell movies, things like uh, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. There's something about the fact that it's filmed in the early 70s that reminds
I
me
do like that. I do
so
like a movie.
intensely of Doctor Who and Monty Python. It's all the same kind of era, and there's something so comforting and hauntological about watching 70s Doctor Who because it's so clearly of a different time, but it's not black and white. It's very early color, and that's always gonna float my boat and evoke memories for me. The 70s. There are
I
people who
agree.
make music.
I like a show where I can watch something and it takes me back to like a different
Yeah,
era
I
too,
mean,
where I'm like, I remember that like you see old reels where it's like maybe on Facebook or maybe a meme or something from back in like the 1980s, and you're like, oh, that's right. This is what these signs used to look like, and this is what was in everybody's living room. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that too. Just for the nostalgic. Yeah. I'll have to watch the Doctor Who's of the early 1980s because I'd love to see what their hair looked like.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very camp.
Or mid 80s. When did the 80s hair get all crazy? Was that mid 80s? Probably.
It was a very camp era of Doctor Who. The 80s, really. It was. It
I
was.
think I blame that on England, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the ozone layer is really the British pop bands of the 1980s really is the reason for that. Sorry.
And there is a certain, you can see that coming into Doctor Who, a kind of glam rock kind of sensibility comes into Doctor Who, where the villains will be wearing like spangly jumpsuits, because that's A, what glam rock stars, and B, what people in space now wear. Yeah,
I'd
Blake
love. Do
Seven,
they wear?
Blake Seven, another great show for this ridiculous kind of its
Is
time
it?
fashion.
But it's not camp though. Like you don't watch it and you're just like you would watch an '80s horror movie that once terrified you. You'd
Yeah,
watch it again and be like, oh my gosh, this is.
yeah. In
I'm watching Puppet Master again, and I thought that was so terrifying. And then I look at it and I'm like, this is just weird. What is going on here?
yeah.
But something like that. But I would love to watch anything from the '80s just to get that nostalgia back because I forget. I've come to that point where I forget about it.
No, it's so good. And Doctor Who is probably more interesting as a cultural artifact of Britain for 6 decades. It's like that show Seven Up, where every 7 years they come back to the people. Uh,
Never heard of it.
oh, it's a famous British thing. So they're up to like 77 up, maybe, or certainly 63 up has happened. So they started with 7 year
Oh,
olds, and they were like, here are 7 year olds in 1970 or 1967 or something. We're going to come back to them every 7 years. And so the chances of them hitting upon a really interesting person who has an incredibly interesting life is quite small, and maybe some of them. But coming back every 7 years is really interesting because if you look at that, if you go back to the beginning, and there's some really interesting assumptions at the beginning, like there's like 10 of them at the beginning and 8 of them are men, because it was like, well, we obviously aren't going to care about coming back to these women every
yeah,
7 years, these girls. Who cares about girls? They're not going to do anything
yeah.
interesting.
When
They're
I
going to
grow
get
up, I
married.
want to work. I want to be a cricket player, and I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
the same
so
job as my dad.
I would love to watch those because it'd be so interesting just going back, little time capsules of what Britain was like in 63 and 72 and 79 and 86 or whatever.
Now you're really going back. You're
Yeah,
not that old.
I was there for all of those things. Maybe not
What
seven.
was the first movie you saw in the theater?
Ooh, that's a good question. I know my
I'll tell you, I
my
saw
dad
it
took
was
us,
Annie.
probably might have been Cobra with Sylvester Stallone. I know, I
Your
know
mom
my
said theater.
father took us to that because he didn't give a. And when we came out, he was like, maybe I shouldn't have taken you to that. I do remember this very well. It's got a scene where Stallone basically drives a bike into someone who is standing against a wall, killing them. And my dad
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh. My
I,
father used to watch, so in the United States, on Sundays, Channel 11, that was the channel in New York City that you would watch movies. And my dad used to love those Korean martial arts movies, and they were so violent. Like they would like be kicking each other, and like blood would be coming out of their mouth, and it would be so bad. My dad would just be sitting there watching it. We would walk in and out of the room, and I mean, it was like,
when you say Korean martial arts movies, are you actually referring to a genre of Korean martial arts, or because I don't
yeah.
think I've ever seen a
Yeah, I
Korean.
mean, you absolutely can see that the words that they're saying in English are not what they're actually saying.
Yeah, are we
It's
not?
very lip synced
I
and
just want
heavy.
to
It's
check we're
just,
not talking about Hong Kong martial arts movies, which I feel like there's
oh,
maybe
wait, I don't know, but I always assumed it was Korean. I guess I just
interesting.
felt like it was mentioned before that he liked them, and so I was just
Could have
said
been.
thought that.
If
I'll
if
have to
if
really
they
look
if
into
they're
that.
using Taekwondo, it probably is
I
Korean.
mean, I know Bruce Lee is Hong Kong, right? But
Yeah.
I think, oh gosh, I can't. You want me to tell you what a martial art is by the way they kick somebody? Because
Yeah.
I'm gonna like
Are they
this is a
using a
whole nother.
Korean school of martial art? Come on, it's an important question.
We need a professional martial arts like black.
No, I would totally watch a Korean martial arts movie. I don't think I've ever seen a Korean martial arts movie. I do like
All
Korean
right,
cinema.
all of your crossword fans have to go ahead and send you some suggestions.
I
But
like Old
honestly,
Boy. Have you seen Old Boy? I watched Old Boy again recently, and it stands up. It's just nasty. It's so good.
I don't watch a lot of movies. I really, it's so sad. I really don't watch a lot of movies. I think the last movie that I actually saw, and it wasn't even in the theater, was Get Out. It was on Netflix, and I was sick.
What? That's a
and I
while
like it.
back. Is that the
I
last
saw
Jordan Peele
Bad
movie you've
Dudes,
seen?
Bad Guys. So I saw
Have,
that.
have you
That
watched
doesn't help.
Us? Have you watched Nope? Jordan Peele is doing lots of stuff. Get
I
Out.
like that movie though.
Get Out's just his maiden voyage.
I need to see more of him then. I'm watching
Yeah.
Puppet Master.
I have a great interest in what Jordan Peele goes on to do because he could do great things. Nope was quite interesting. It was certainly ambitious.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, I just, I just don't have time to watch a movie. But
Yeah, you certainly don't have time to watch all of Doctor Who. Let me tell you that because
well,
there
as long
are
as
a
there's no
thousand
commercial.
episodes.
Where do I watch Doctor Who? When you're,
You should be able to watch most of it on Disney Plus now.
don't own it.
Do they have it? Yeah,
So last
I'll
question.
hook you up.
Let's talk about real quickly. What Doctor Who item is the most collectible? Like if I was on eBay, which one would be the most expensive?
Ooh.
What Doctor Who on a thermos would be the most collectible?
What Doctor Who? Oh, what episode or
No, no,
what
like
item?
okay, which of the Doctor Who's is so rare, the actors or that period of time that if you had this guy's face on a poster or a thermos or a lunchbox or something, would it
I
be
don't know.
really highly prized if I was a collector of memorabilia?
I don't know.
Ever.
Maybe an audio recording of Trevor Martin playing the
Trevor
Doctor
Martin.
in the 1970 something stage play Doctor Who and the Seven Keys to Doomsday. He's a Doctor who's lost to history.
So
Yeah,
you might not be even able to watch his.
But well, he was in a stage play. It was like 1973, 1974.
What was his name again? I'm
I
sorry.
think it was Trevor Martin. I mean,
Trevor Martin.
this is really niche Doctor Who content. It's like people who have played the Doctor who, like, I went to see John Pertwee playing the Doctor in a Doctor Who stage play in the early 90s. So John Pertwee was the Doctor for a while. Colin Baker, who was another Doctor, took over the role for a while. But I know that at some point John Pertwee was sick, and so his understudy, David Banks, had to step in and be the Doctor for two performances. And so he, in some senses, is an actor who has played a canonical Doctor. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
real Doctor Who fans would be like, "Oh yes, let me talk about this," but everyone else would be like, "What on earth? What on earth is the point
That's so cool
of
though. So
knowing
there's
that?"
a lot of like it's a diehard Doctor Who fans with
There are a lot
like
of people who played the Doctor in like spin-off media. There have been Arabella Weir played the Doctor in an audio in a weird sort of parallel universe Doctor where she's working at a supermarket or whatever. It's a really weird episode, and so in some senses, Arabella Weir, who's a British actress, comedian, has played the Doctor.
that's
And yeah,
cool.
if you asked me to come up with a list of people who played the Doctor, I could probably give you about 50 names eventually, but they would not be very
Wow.
interesting. They'd be like obscure spin-off side media audio projects. Spoofs. Lenny Henry played the Doctor, and he's a British comedian. Played the Doctor in his sketch show. Blah blah blah. You
I'm
know,
gonna make it a point to watch one Doctor Who from each decade. If I can do it, if I can find it on, I'll do a 60s, a 70s, 80s, 90s, and then the zeros, the noughts. Is that what you call it? The tens.
yeah.
It's like a lot though. I'll try. I won't.
Well, start with City of Death from 1979. It's very good. It's
I used to do this. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
written by Douglas
I,
Adams. It has Tom Baker in it. Tom
I
Baker's
used to
running
do like
around with Lalla Ward, who then went on to marry Richard Dawkins. She must have had a thing for arrogant scientific men.
I would like to watch more of it because I feel like sci-fi is definitely a genre that I don't really
Doctor Who
appreciate as much. I like Twilight Zone kind of things.
Yeah, Doctor Who isn't really sci-fi though, is it?
Is it?
It's been sci-fi
It
for like
looks like it.
5 minutes over. Occasionally there'll be something that you're like, that's kind of sci-fi, but mostly it's a fantasy show. I would say.
I have to watch it.
Science
But it's
fantasy,
really
maybe.
good. I see why the people like it, and I see why it's a cult thing because it has a lot of different elements of it.
Yeah,
I'll need to
no,
watch it.
I mean,
And I
it's.
appreciate you telling me about it because honestly, I had no idea. I don't even know why he's called Doctor Who. I mean, does he go by another name?
So yeah, this is all part of the rich tapestry of Doctor Who. So he isn't really called Doctor Who, but he might be because in an episode called The War Machines in 1966, there's a computer called Wotan who has taken over the post office tower in London, and at some point Wotan says, "Doctor Who is required," and this is like a genius alien supercomputer, so he must know that the Doctor's name is Doctor Who. But the Doctor never calls himself Doctor Who, and generally it's been generally the sort of default assumption seems to be that Doctor Who is just a question. It's like, who is this mysterious character, the Doctor? There is sort of an increasing tapestry of potential answers to that question, which have got more and more complex and annoying recently. But yeah,
That's so
so
exciting. Well,
oh,
I
and
see you're really
oh,
interested in.
I probably not asked you the most important question. Are you aware of the Doctor Who theme tune? Because that's, I think, the real reason of the success of Doctor Who is
The theme song?
it has a very good theme, and it's
Is it? I feel like I've heard it. You say, "Ooh, no."
yeah, that sounded
Is
right.
that it? Is that it?
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I was just about to do that. But you know why I was about to do that? Because I watched that one little clip. That was it. So they
Anyway,
carried that all the way through to present.
it is
That.
essentially the same theme, but the first theme was done by Delia Derbyshire, who is an amazing electronic musician, a female electronic musician. Ron Grainer allegedly wrote the theme tune, but Delia Derbyshire was doing the weird BBC radiophonic special effects. So she had all the theremins and all the
Oh,
synthesizers,
that was terrible.
and she so I think the real reason Doctor Who has lasted for 61 years is that the theme tune was a fantastic piece of 60s electronic music, and everyone who heard it, it sort of sends shivers down your spine. You've got these weird blobs sort of coalescing in this incredibly evocative theme tune. And that's why Doctor Who has lasted, if it has, because of Delia Derbyshire and her theremin.
That's
Yeah,
so crazy. That's a good piece of trivia too, a theremin. I haven't heard that before.
it's not actually a theremin,
Well,
but
I mean,
it's
and you know,
that kind of vibe.
well, I better head off because my kids
Yeah,
need to get to bed.
I feel like we have diverted away from Doctor Who quite a lot. That's
No, I
good.
have learned
That's
so
what this is. This
much.
is what this is all
I
about.
have learned so much about him. I have learned about the different ones. I've learned about the reason he has a TARDIS and the different foes. And yeah, I'm trying to think of what else we did. I learned, I
There's a
learned a
lot.
lot about.
There's a lot to
Uh,
take in.
I mean, seriously, if somebody was to come up to me and say something about Doctor Who, I could probably engage them in a conversation without having to
You could
having
now
seen.
bluff being a Doctor Who fan. Excellent.
I could say, look, my favorite one is the one with Carrie Mulligan. I didn't really like the one with Andrew Garfield.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that would totally get you through the door of a Doctor Who convention. Yeah.
oh, you like Doctor Who? I have that. You know what? I have that theremin in my head. I mean, this is all good to chat people up, but
We didn't even mention jelly babies. The fourth
I
Doctor
could.
used to offer people jelly babies, and everyone was very fond of the jelly babies. Shtick.
I'll have to look up jelly babies now because when I think jelly babies, I think of like.
Oh, this is a
Food.
good anecdote to end it on because it's a really really bizarre anecdote. Okay, so I was in Seattle. I was living in Seattle in the 2000s, and I met up with some random Americans, and there's people we met at the bar or something. And I don't know how Doctor Who came up, but one of them started pontificating about Doctor Who. He said, "Oh, well, of course, Doctor Who was incredibly racist in the 70s. It's Tom Baker. He offers people jelly babies. Well, it was so racist. They called them. I can't even say this on the stream. They called them the N-word babies, but they had to edit it out for audiences to make it
Oh,
less racist."
were they black?
And I was like, "This is absolute nonsense. There is nothing true, literally, in this story." He was like, "Oh well, I thought it was true." It's like the most absurd thing for someone to think about Doctor Who. It's not
That is
100% absurd. There
insane.
was an episode in the 60s where they had the catcher Tiger by His Toe song, but the wrong version because that wasn't racist back in 1966. And that story is not a great exemplar of the values of Doctor Who in general. It has a guy in yellow face being someone called the Celestial Toy Maker. It's not great, but you know, Doctor Who was never like
Never racist.
never throwing around racist slurs on alien planets. This I will repudiate utterly.
It's a
Just not,
kids show.
just not true. It is. Yeah. And you know, some things that are very racist now were not so racist in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of casting white actors in roles that should not have been played
Oh,
by
of
white
course.
actors, including in one very good story called The Talons of Weng Chang. There's too much white people playing Chinese 19th century people. It's not good, but you know, that one sometimes people try and forgive because it's a great story. Apart from the fact that they didn't know this was very racist at the time.
Yeah,
You know,
that's all right.
things are of their age, and Doctor Who is no exception. But anyway, yes, the jelly babies. I won't hear a word against them. They are not racist. Jelly babies
No.
are of all different colours and accepting of, of every creed.
All right. So, final thoughts. What's the one episode to end it? What's the one episode I need to watch?
I think City of Death. I think that
City of Death. I
gets
will
you
watch that
right
one.
into the 20th century, the classic era. It's just a really good story. Celebrity cameos, brilliant script by Douglas Adams, who is famous for other reasons,
City of Death.
and
I'm gonna watch it.
it is
But if
wonderful.
I watch it, then everything else will be terrible, right? Maybe I'll watch the Andrew Garfield
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one, honey. But watch Carrie Mulligan in Blink. Actually, that's the one I think people would say was one of the best episodes of modern
one. Okay.
Doctor Who. And partly because it doesn't have very much David Tennant in it, it's really a Carrie Mulligan story. So it's interesting. It's worth